But then, you know, the BC NDP government has very much been opposed to this project and saying that they're going to use every tool in the toolbox to oppose it. How would you approach the BC NDP government in terms of their opposition to Kinder Morgan?
Well, first of all, the Alberta NDP government has done virtually nothing. Premier Notley went to Vancouver shortly after the federal government approved the Kinder Morgan expansion, held private meetings, including with John Horgan, the then NDP opposition leader, after which he said that she did not even try to persuade him to support Kinder Morgan. So that's not exactly the kind of vigorous advocacy we need. We have to start with diplomacy and persuasion, but if that doesn't work, we have to move to consequences. As I've said, if BC wants to start a trade war, then we're going to respond. If they want to violate the rule of law and the Economic Union of Canada by blocking this legally approved national infrastructure project, there will be consequences if I'm Premier.
So if you had a chance to sit down with Premier John Horgan, what would you say to try to persuade him? You're suggesting that you'd talk about consequences and a trade war.
Well, I'd point out, first of all, that it's in the economic interest of all Canadians, that BC is part of an economic union, that they export things to and through Alberta. They sell as hydro. They receive a huge share of their oil and gas that fuels their economy. They ship gas through Alberta toll-free from northeastern British Columbia. There are a lot of points of economic leverage that Alberta has if BC decides to violate the rule of law by blocking the construction of that safe and approved pipeline.
So specifically, what are you thinking in terms of the economic leverage?
Well, you know, in 1982, Peter Lougheed shut off the taps of Alberta oil and gas to central Canada to get the attention of the federal government on the national energy policy. Perhaps we should consider doing the same thing with respect to the current shipment of oil through the current Kinder Morgan pipeline that's existed for 60 years and that fuels much of the lower mainland economy. BC needs to understand that its economy is partly dependent on Alberta oil and gas, and if they want to violate the rule of law and violate free trade in Canada, there will be consequences.
I'd like to